Welcome to the Above Average Driven Millennials podcast series, where entrepreneurs, celebrities, and athletes talk about their journey, from starting and all the shit they had to go through to get where they are today. Please spread the love. Write us a review. We want to help as many entrepreneurs and people as we can with advice from industry experts. Now, here's your host, President and founder of Adapting Social, John A. Vaguero.
Hey guys, welcome to the Above Average Driven Millennials podcast. I'm here with Chirag today. We are going to dive into his world. John will not be joining me on the podcast today. However, we know that we're still going to have a fire conversation. So Chirag, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. And before we dive in too deep, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So, born, raised in California, more specifically in Los Angeles, in a place called Glendale, and went to high school here, and then ended up going to USC right after. And so, was in LA for majority of my teen years, and even into my early 20s, right? And so during my time there, I jump-started a nonprofit. A buddy of mine from high school and a few friends at the University of Chicago were teaching financial education to high school students. The program was called Money Think. And I brought it to USC, did that for all 4 years of college. And I think my senior year of college, we ended up winning this huge White House competition. Recognized by President Obama at the White House.
Wow.
And then, long story short, we ended up expanding into 17 universities. I helped UCLA, Claremont, Chapman start up their chapters, and ended up becoming my first job out of college. And so I was officially employee number 1 and 2 with my same friend who introduced me to the program. We ended up going full-time with it. So moved to cold, wintry Chicago. Was there for a couple of years, helped build, scale, grow the program, and was involved in a lot of their fundraising efforts. And well, it's a 2-person team, so you have to do a little bit of everything. And so realized that I really loved social media and marketing aspect of things. And within a couple of years, nonprofit was at a good spot. They were on they were on a point where they were more focused on quality control, and were building out a mobile app. And so scalability and everything was going to start slowing down until we could get everything built out and tested. And so I knew there was going to be a couple of years until they were going to start growing and expanding the program once again. So it was a good time to leave. Came back to LA, and while I was at Money Think and working on it full time, we ran a few different fundraising campaigns, and that White House competition that I mentioned, a lot of this was social media driven. So you have to go out, get your friends to vote for you. And so ended up, I think we raised through Kickstarter, Indiegogo, all the different campaigns, maybe north of 50,000 all in.
Wow.
And, for a 2-person team, for 2% nonprofit, I mean, that was probably a third of our operating costs right there. So pretty significant when you're that small, and so I kind of realized, what the opportunities were with social media. I mean, it feels like I date myself, but in 2013, Facebook launched their advertising on their platform, and we kind of took advantage of that, and so I saw the growth potential and started a social media consulting company. Right when I came back to LA, or within a few months. And one of my first clients was a luxury publication called Destination Luxury. Helped build and scale that for a few months, and we ended up merging companies. So a lot of my staff, a lot of my resources ended up getting combined with that. And so we simultaneously launched a marketing branding company, and that provided our initial funding to reinvest and put that into our luxury publication. And so now, have a luxury publication called Destination Luxury, have a marketing branding company called Digital Luxury Agency, and then during this process, in the last, I guess, year and a half, couple years now, ended up launching a book publishing company as well.
Wow,
So
man, you're all across the board.
yeah, yeah. But
Wow.
each one significantly, there was always an organic reason. Like the opportunity presented itself and had enough demand for it to get to you know to it had legs, had clients, had money coming in to get things going, and it was just kind of right time, right place to just execute and get it done.
That's awesome. Well, it's definitely great that you were able to take advantage of that opportunity too, since I'm sure in the moment you had your doubts, but you went for it, and that's what really matters.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was It was a lot being naive and not understanding all the problems that I would run into as you're building it. I think part of it is if you know fully what you're getting into, or at least I do for the book publishing company. I don't know if I would have started or I would have said yes to that and kept going. It was like, oh, okay, that's like a little problem. Then you work on it. Sometimes it's for a day, sometimes it's for a few days, sometimes it could even be for a couple of weeks, and then you get it resolved, and then you run into another problem, and then you just kind of keep fixing it as you're going. And I've heard many sayings of you building an airplane as it's kind of going down, um, and so that you're trying to keep flight as much as you can. And so it's like, oh, problem, oh wait, you're fixing it, and then things are going smoothly again, and then problem and fix it. And I think you just keep doing that over and over again, and get to a point where you're like, oh wow, like there were a lot of problems, and I had no idea I was gonna get to where I am right now. But it just, you kind of fix it as you keep going. And I think if sometimes it makes sense just to keep it afloat. And I think there's a lot of information that I have now that makes sense, but I didn't know in hindsight.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I feel like that applies to life even beyond business. Like you're always going to have those problems, but you need to just kind of try to rebuild that plane as it's tanking. It's just
Yeah.
all about finding the solution to your problems, which is something that not a lot of people understand.
hmm Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say really what I'm doing is just fixing problems.
But that's awesome. I mean, a lot of people will feel overwhelmed when they have their back against the wall because you're never going to go through life without problems. Like, you're never going to grow unless you put yourself in a situation where you need to feel those problems too.
hmm Absolutely.
So, what was like the one of the biggest challenges that you faced really scaling and growing your businesses?
Um, a lot of it is making sure that you have the right people in place. I think that was my biggest lesson. Is having the right partners that you trust, that are vetted, that can get the job done. I mean, like even before I started the luxury publication, I ended up I had a failed startup in between, if not two. Two small failed ventures. Try to see if it had legs, and unfortunately, they just didn't have the right business partners, or visions were just not aligned. The chemistry just wasn't there,
Mm,
and it's unfortunate, but I think there is a lot of trial and error that goes into it. Um, you know, if sometimes you just don't know what you're getting into, and I think you have to give it a shot.
yeah,
And I think so that's like my number one thing is just make sure that you know exactly who you're getting into business with, and just make sure that you know what your vision is, you know what your values are personally, and what values you want in other people, um, and what your skill sets are. I think you have to be self aware and self conscious enough to know what you're great at, what you're not great at, and where other people can pick up where you're not great at too.
that's awesome. So it's all about just making sure that no matter what, you have the skills surrounding you to
Correct.
make sure that success is going to happen no matter what. And that's huge because I feel like a lot of people will look at a person's qualifications before they look at like the skills that they actually have, like where they went to school and like everything that they've done in their life rather than like them as like a person, which is very different from what you typically hear.
hmm Exactly. And I think that's spot on. I think that's always number one, and those are things that are typically overlooked a lot of times in entrepreneurship. But yeah, most of mine was learned from personal experience.
Absolutely. So, what experiences would you say really shaped you to like who you are in business and in life, and just everything that you're striving to accomplish moving forward?
Sure, I think that there were a few things that kind of hit hard. I think just about everything that I learned was done via or volunteering early on in my career. Like when I first started, I thought I wanted to enter the healthcare field, and I learned very early in my teens, and it probably has to do with the fact that a lot of this came from my parents. They wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, or more specifically, someone to get into like the healthcare field. And I took an AP Bio class, took a physiology class in high school, and I realized I didn't want to pursue that. There were a lot of classes that I knew that I would have, if I wanted to become a doctor, I was going to have to take 8, 9, 10 more years of this. While then this was just me at like 15, 16 years old, realizing, oh my God, I'm going to have to take 10 more years of this before to even enter the field. So I knew immediately that healthcare was not on my list. Um, and so
Well, at
I
least you
read a
realized
few
when you were
academics.
young, because I feel like a lot of people go and like way too deep in it all
Uh
before they
huh.
realize.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the one thing I didn't want to do. I think, and I don't think I realized this at that time, but I think I was creating more of a checklist of the things that I didn't want to do, more so than the things that I actually did want to do. And so, like healthcare industry, I really enjoyed parts of it, but the core things that you would need to study to become a professional in it, I didn't want to go through that process. So that was off my list. And then I knew I wanted to get into economics and business and finance. So I took a couple of economics classes. It piqued my interest. I knew I wanted to get into business. I mean, like really, I started reading my first real nonfiction book. I think I first book I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I realized I really liked marketing, and I really liked the connecting with other people, and I really loved that component. And so part of me thought that accounting was something that I would want to get into. So freshman year in college, I thought that I would become an accountant. I thought I wanted to. That's when I really learned about entrepreneurship early on in 2008, and so that's I thought I wanted to create my own accounting firm down the road,
Mm.
um, and did an accounting internship. That was my first internship I did, and again realized I did not want to sit behind a computer for hours on days, just crunching Excel spreadsheets. I actually liked being on the phone, and one of my other internships that I did, or jobs that I had, was I was in insurance sales for some time, and I kind of learned that I didn't like that hard, gritty sales experience, but I did like the connecting with other people. I like the marketing, the things that are a little bit more soft. Um, and I kind of realized that I'm very uh, if anything that requires planning and execution and is more of a marathon, I'm really good at. Anything that was more of a sprint, where you're gonna go door knocking and you're gonna pick up the phone and call 50 people every single day to get rejected flat out. I knew that I was very bad at that. I don't think I have that type of personality, but I think if you give me a long term play, like, hey, look, we have a goal, we need to raise $50,000, and we have 2 months to do this. Like, figure out the best way to get the job done. I can build out a full marketing plan to execute, and figure out a creative way to do it, where I can create a couple of videos. I can post a lot of things on social media, and maybe within the first 2 3 weeks, I wouldn't be raising a single dollar, but I all the different marketing tools that I would use would be planting a bunch of seeds everywhere, and eventually it would harvest all simultaneously. And a lot of this happened, but it was more of a learning process. I learned, I'm not good at sales. I'm just not that type of person. I hated accounting. I hated legal. And it was a bunch of things I was checking off the list, the things that I didn't want to do, and eventually I kind of narrowed down what I did. And I think that I just did that early enough, and I was self aware enough, even earlier on, to figure out what I didn't like to do as opposed to what I did, and then I was kind of able to hone in more on what I did want to do.
That's awesome. It's crazy how many things you tried. Like you went across the board, like everything in the realm of business that you could possibly do, and that's amazing because I feel like I love that. The only way that you know what you like to do is to figure out what you don't like to do, and that's
Correct.
like the opposite of like how so many people think, and that's awesome. And I don't want you to have to give away too much of your strategy, but would you want to talk like a little bit about pretty much what you do when you must hit those fundraising goals? Because I think that's so interesting how in such a short period of time you're able to accomplish some pretty impressive feats.
Yeah, I think there was one particular instance, and I've written about this too, but so one of our fundraising, we were doing a back to school campaign. Our goal was to raise $10,000, and my role within MoneyThink was starting to change because I was in charge of expansion on the community side, and so as my role was transitioning, I got placed into more of the fundraising and spearheading the back to school campaign that we were trying to do. So we were trying to raise about $10,000, and it was a 2 week campaign. I became in charge of it literally 4 or 5 days before the campaign was going to be finished, or 5, 6 days. And so I think we were only halfway towards the goal, and we needed to hit the very end of it. And so as I kind of figured out my group, there were like a bunch of different things that we were trying, and we had a pretty extensive newsletter. I think we had a 10,000 person newsletter list. And then we were trying a bunch of different tactics to see what we can do to raise the goal, to hit the goal, right? I remember there was literally 29, 30, maybe 29 to 30 hours left, and we were just about $3,000 short of the goal. And I was sitting there trying to figure out, and by then I had figured out that if I was going to hit this goal, I had to do one-on-one conversations, and the most effective way to do it at that time was Facebook Messenger. Um, a lot of those tools wouldn't work right now because you would get flagged with spam on Facebook Messenger. But
Yeah.
I was literally sitting there, and I was at a Dunkin' Donuts, so it's 24 hours. Um, I didn't sleep. I literally pulled an all nighter, and I sat there messaging people, and I had my couple thousand friends, and I kept talking to them, and I figured out how to initiate the conversation so that it wasn't direct. It wasn't like a direct ask. It was more of like a hey, how are you doing? It's been a while. How are things going on? And I created a full script. There was literally like every single scenario that could happen, and based on the conversation, I kind of let it evolve. And so I was having like 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes even like 10 conversations at one point, just because some people don't respond immediately.
Hmm.
And so then based off of that, I just kept going on and on. I think I talked to 700, 800 people and ended up hitting the fundraising goal.
Damn,
So
man.
so I was able to figure out like, okay, what's their propensity to give? What How are they doing right now financially? And there are some people that were still in college, and I kind of knew their situation. So I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I could maybe ask for like 5, 10, 15, $20. There are some people that I just didn't ask. I was like, based on their current situation, just the information they're providing me, I don't feel comfortable asking for it. And sometimes I would just ask them for an update. And each person, I try to provide them value. So as they were talking, I remember it was one person who was looking for an internship. And I was like, actually, my company's looking for an internship, and I have two of my mentors. These are two different internships that I've seen posted just on my social media feeds. And then I would send it to them. And so this way you're providing value as I was having the conversation. But this is like super specific because this actually happened. And I ended up hitting the fundraising goal, I think, with like 2, 3 hours to spare. And I remember just like leaving that Dunkin' Donuts. I went home and I just crashed. So, but like that's kind of like a direct situation of something that ended up happening.
Wow, man, you really just got gritty and did everything that you possibly could. I admire that because there's a lot of people who would have been in your situation would have just been panicking, but you knew that there was another way out. There was a solution to everything.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I took over the campaign with 6 days left, and I tried like 10 different things during those like first 3-4 days, and I figured out, okay, this is gonna be really the one thing that's really gonna work, and I just need to I need to invest all of my efforts 100% just into this, and just go all in.
That's awesome, man. Good stuff. You really made it happen and laid it out. It's such an early stage in your career, so amazing stuff. That's so great. So, one of the things that John and I always like to ask before we really wrap up the podcast is just kind of where do you see yourself in 10 years? I know that you have had a lot of success in your companies, and I just want to know, like, where do you envision yourself in the future?
Great question. So I actually just answered that question a couple of times, and I was talking to a few different folks. And I think we're more or less where I want to be is doing angel and VC investing down the road. And part of it is I realize that I am a borderline control freak, where I need to at least have my ear in the boardroom to understand what's going on. And because we have a marketing branding company, the way that we've been doing it strategically is doing a barter deal, which is instead of just charging our normal rates, we'll take equity or small portions of it, and so we'll do a mediary of some equity and some cash into companies and invest into their long term growth. And just over time, I've been able to build a lot of relationships with angel investors, with other VCs. And so I'm kind of learning from them along the way. And even some of the companies that we're taking a little bit of equity in, we're introducing some of them to our investor friends. So long term, I see myself getting more into angel investing. But I say that knowing that I don't think I'm the type of person that's going to stop creating my own companies. I'm always going to be working on the side. Now, whether I'm going to be doing what I'm doing right now, still as actively as I'm doing, that's to be determined. I'll let the 5-10 year older version of me figure that out. But for now, that's kind of the growth trajectory I see myself on. Is I want to be able to invest into entrepreneurs and help them grow and scale their companies with all the different things that I've been able to learn along the way and expedite their careers.
Damn, man, that's so amazing. And I'm sure that you've seen through research that we're super passionate about helping entrepreneurs too, as well, and really helping small businesses grow through marketing and branding and design and everything that we do across the board. And I definitely see an opportunity between both of us in the future. So definitely awesome stuff. And I love your message. And my family's actually from your area too. Funny enough, they're in Santa Barbara. So it's a
nice.
Pretty small world. Yeah, it's great,
yeah.
great
yeah.
part of California. I love it. Awesome, man. So
Yeah.
before we wrap up, John and I always like to talk about what your life quote is. And it's just a quote that really stands out to you and is super meaningful. So, like, I'll share mine. My life quote is the only time you should ever look back is to see how far you've come.
Ah, nice. I love that.
Thanks,
okay,
man.
so I think along the same lines, mine's is if your life were a movie, would you watch it?
Wow, dude, that's so powerful.
Yeah. I think the first, I can't even remember who told me that. I don't know if I heard it in someone else's speech or if I heard a friend say it, but it's become a part. I think at the first time I heard that, I was 21 or 22. I had just graduated college, and I think I was just starting my first job out of college. And I think I just moved to Chicago. I was like 1 or 2 probably 2 or 3 months into the job, it came across me. I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I put it on a notepad, and I used to have it on my computer, on the side in my notes, and then I kind of had it in my phone, and then eventually it just became a part of me. I've even said that in a few different speeches, and so now it's just, I'm like, actually, I really like this quote. It really resonates, and it's become more so my life motto.
I love it. So would you say you would watch your life's movie?
Yeah, right now I would. I think in conjunction with that, I think it has to do with if I died right now, or if I was on my deathbed, I found out that something tragic happened, and I was, how I've never had that experience, very fortunately, right? Knock on wood, but I've heard from many people that they've seen their life flash before their eyes, right? And I think it has to do with regret. I think like regret's one of those things, and I volunteered enough at different retirement homes, and you can see regret on people's faces. That's always like the one thing where people are like, "Damn, I really wish I took that chance. I really wish I did this or that." And I think I would be fine with it.
Awesome, dude. That's fucking incredible. Because I feel like there's so many people who live their life with regrets, and knowing that you really are living your dream is truly admirable.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome stuff, man.
Yeah, and I'm grateful and blessed for it too. So every single day.
I love that. It's all about waking up, and before you look at the bad things in your life, you count your blessings, and that's truly so important. And there's too many people that get out of bed and think about all the things that they have to do rather than the things that they want to do. And it's about really living your dream. It's exactly like you say. If your life was a movie, would you watch it? I love that, dude. I love it.
So yeah, that's mine.
Awesome, man. Well, Chirag, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Above Average Driven Millennials podcast today. You've given some incredible insights into your world and will, without question, inspire so many people who are considering a wide range of aspects of their career that they could potentially get involved in, where they should try a bunch of different things to find what they really love rather than to settle. And I love your message, and I love everything that you said.
Thanks so much. No, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, and hopefully this resonates with someone out there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I hope you have a seriously awesome day, and thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate
man.
it.
We'll be following up with you too, by the way. I'll be getting you the assets to the podcast and everything else too.
Yeah, would love to share it. So
awesome,
so
dude. You're the man. Have a great day, all right?
Dude, have a good one, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Later. Thank you.
Bye.